Hello, everyone, and welcome back to I'll Watch What They're Watching, where we're curious and adamant about cinema. And today we are diving in with our top 3 rom-coms. We wanted to kind of keep up with the trend last week, and wanted to keep up. We're in the month of love, so to speak. So we kind of wanted to keep on with that theme. We haven't talked a ton about romances or rom-coms, so we'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty of like what makes a rom-com, what makes a good rom-com. But first, for those of you who are new to the show, we do like to talk about just sort of what we've been watching. I'm thinking about calling the segment "What's in Theaters."
So between Friday and Saturday, take a guess at how many movies I watched.
5, 7,
11. In 2 days, I watched 11 movies.
In 2 days? Sir, I watched, 4 this week, I think?
Well, it's not a competition by any means. I
Ridiculous.
just, the caveat of 3 of them were short films, but still. So anyways, I end up trying to catch all the Oscar nominees as quickly as I can. Sometimes they'll show up on a random streaming service. I follow a link. It takes me to Patreon. I have to join the Quebec Film Festival for $5, and I'm good to watch a short. So I try to pay for everything, try to support the creators, whatever it can. But it's an interesting time. I did get to the theater as well twice. Got there for Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. Yes, Gore Verbinski's return to the mainstream movie-making business. He is the director behind Pirates of the Caribbean, The Lone Ranger, The Ring, the really spooky movie.
That's right.
Yeah. So very popular.
And you were really, really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I think in general, I trust him from the sense of a fun movie and engaging in a practical sort of application of different effects or visuals. And he'd been gone for a long time, so a lot of people were pretty excited about that. It's kind of a crazy movie.
Okay.
I didn't dislike it. I liked it, but I don't think I liked it as much as I wanted to, but that's not an issue. I still had a fun time with it. It is very much a sort of satirical black comedy, so I think maybe some of the styling choices might not be your flavor.
I was about to say black comedies tend to, dark comedies and satires tend to, I don't know, the past several have rubbed me the wrong way, so I might not make this one a priority.
Yeah, I would say that. Have you seen Black Mirror at all, or know the vibe?
I know about, I'm familiar with it, even though I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've only seen an episode and a handful of some others, but it's sort of in that vein. There's a couple, it'll flash back to some backstories, and it's basically just like a contained 10 to 15 minutes of sort of a Black Mirror-esque plot line of a couple going there. Some of them like really tonally quite striking. Overall message of it, supportive of, and I think there's some fun things there. I like the ending, which is very controversial. So yeah, not a ton more to say. I liked it. Didn't love it. Wasn't my favorite. Won't be my favorite thing of the year, but had a good time.
Okay.
The other one I saw with Ollie and Allie was Goat, which is the Steph Curry produced, Caleb McLaughlin starring, basketball, Sony animation, so your same vein as Spider-Verse, K-pop Demon Hunters, that type of animation style, basically about animal basketball. And I loved it. I think it was really, really good.
All right.
The complaints that were there were sort of it's a trite story or one that we've seen a lot. And while I think a lot of that is generally somewhat true, I think this is new and refreshing in a lot of ways. I think just even like the world is a really, really well done world. I think the obvious direct comparison would be Zootopia. But I think that if I had to, Zootopia does a lot more in the world and like building the world, but I feel like this one feels
Okay.
a lot more lived in and also just like feels
Interesting.
fun.
Okay.
And so, like early in the movie, he's kind of walking around before his big break and doing some different things. And I'm just like, I just like being here. This is a lot of fun. And so I think when those
Mm,
elements are hitting right, I think it works really well. I think that for anyone that's a basketball fan, there's a lot of layers to different jokes that are really funny, that are like he's directly referencing this story that happened in real life, and it's funny. I think there isn't a lot of butt jokes, which I know we're not the biggest fan on here.
right.
There's maybe only one or two things that happen that's sort of the quote unquote butt joke type thing. But yeah, I was really impressed. I really loved it. I loved the music. Fun, engaging, not just for a kids movie. I think it's just a well done. Obviously, the target audience for this is probably your, pre-teen, 8 to 13 type of demographic,
Right.
is like the number one, but there's enough there that anyone else would be engaged and happy and excited about it.
Quick question then, because you did mention that, there's some fun little Easter eggs for people who are big basketball fans. I am not. There are some sports I like. I do like football, but I find basketball incredibly boring. Would this still be something that someone like me would enjoy?
Oh yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Do you ever play the video game Super Mario Strikers?
Yes.
Okay. So I would be shocked. In fact, there's no way that they didn't get some inspiration from that. Just like the stadium designs feels almost
Okay.
direct transplant from Super Mario Strikers. And so
Interesting. Okay.
any of the basketball scenes are much more like a fight scene than like a sports scene, I would say.
Okay.
And I think in that way it's really engaging and it's a lot of fun. But I was excited when I first saw things coming out from this. I cooled off a little bit when I saw some reactions of people kind of saying it's fine, it's good, not great. But then after
Mhm.
seeing it, I'm more on the train of no, I think this was great. I think this was really well done.
Cool. I saw nothing in theaters. Couple school things I saw.
Right.
One is called Short Term 12. It came out in 2013. Stars Brie Larson, who I historically do not care for, but honestly, I think she's almost like performative in her hyperfeminism in some ways that I'm like, you need to chill. But Short Term 12, really interesting. Really interesting. We watched it for my education class because we're kind of in there's a trope in film that is like the hero teacher narrative. So we first watched a movie called Freedom Writers, which it's nice, it's sweet, it's one of those
I
feel
think
good
I've
movies,
seen
but it
that.
is kind of, yeah, it is kind of the white savior situation. Short Term 12, I feel like, is a much more realistic look. And so because of that, like, it's a heavy film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a heavy, heavy film. It's only 96 minutes, and I think that's all that there needed to be, because I think if there were more, you would just have been so bogged down by just
Sure.
how intense it is. But I do think I think it's an important film. I think it's a good one.
Awesome.
Then one that I watched in my uh journal journalism class, which is quickly becoming one of my favorites. It's called Truth. Never heard of it before. Came out in 2015, but it stars Cate Blanchett and Robert Redford,
Hmm.
which I was like, how have I never heard of this thing before? I have never heard of this thing before because it's not very good. But it's based on a, story where 60-minute, it was one of the elections where I think George W. Bush's second term. And so, yeah, the 2004 election. So 60 Minutes basically put out this story of like some military favoritism and a variety of things. But the big thing is they had these documents that they kind of put out with it. And you come to find out, like, basically a lot of blogs were looking at it and we were like, that doesn't look like a typewriter. That looks like something that you could write up in Microsoft Word. Anyway, what it ended up, and so again, based on fact, where 60 Minutes basically had to apologize, people were asked to resign, someone got fired. Cate Blanchett is giving a fabulous performance because it's Cate freaking Blanchett. And so like she's giving a better performance than I think this movie deserves.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like, it is biased. Like, you watch it and it's based off of her, the Mary Mapes, the one who got fired, who Cate Blanchett plays. It's based off of her book. So there's definite bias in it, but it is this idea where, kind of what my journalism professor said is, he goes, I started you guys off with like good stuff, like All the President's Men and Spotlight, where it's like, look, here's good people doing good things. He's like, and by the end of the semester, you'll think like we're going to see journalism really, really bad. And he goes, so this is like, we're starting to see the problems. And that's what it is. It's just, it's journalists not doing their due diligence. It's rushing a story. Again, it's interesting. I say, if you like Cate Blanchett, I mean, go ahead and watch it. It's Cate Blanchett. Like, she's giving a fantastic performance. The movie as a whole is not very great. And then I watched How to Train Your Dragon on Friday night because I wanted to watch a movie that I wanted to pick, because I have only been watching school stuff for the past like 2 months. And that was fun. It's How to Train Your Dragon.
Awesome.
I love that movie.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like I haven't done that in a long time because I'm either watching Oscar movies or movies for the podcast or anything else, or Valentine's Day. So now I have to watch these movies. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
I'm complaining about nothing. I'm mostly choosing, and I shouldn't, because you really do have a lot of things forced upon you that makes it tricky sometimes.
I'm either watching movies, right? I'm either watching movies for school, or I'm watching it for the podcast, or I'm watching it for this, that, and the other, whatever. Like, it just felt nice to be like, I want to watch this movie.
Right.
I'm not picking it because I have to write a paper on it. I'm not picking it because we're discussing it in class, or because I need to cram this in before the podcast. Like, I am watching it because it is a Friday night and I want to watch How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So that was nice.
Good.
Also, side note, I know I've talked about this podcast before. I will not talk about them so much, but one of the podcasts that I really like, Alternate Ending, I am a Patreon patron of that podcast, and so as a patron, I get to pick a movie for the critic in residence on the podcast to discuss on the podcast. I picked Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. The review he gave is one of my favorite things that has ever existed, and I have drummed up enough attention around it with my family and friends that I am just informing you, there will be a top 5 Barbie episode at some point. Also, in Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses, the villain is voiced by Catherine O'Hara. What a way to commemorate. I'm just saying, I mentioned it, and I had family and friends be like, I would listen to that podcast so fast. So I'm just letting you know, I really am pushing for this, and it might happen eventually. Listeners, in the comments, let us know that you want us to do this so that Adam can stop telling me no.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, we'll have to see, I guess.
We will have to see. Anyway, but that was kind of related
because I wanted to.
I almost picked a Barbie movie let's get into it. I had a hard time with this subject in so many ways.
It's an interesting one because I knew my 3 immediately, and I feel like this is a genre that there are a lot of diamonds out there, and so often we'll watch one. I just thought of one. I just remembered I have to look up now. You'll watch one randomly one time. It's on like a streaming service, and you're like, that was a really good rom-com. So it is an interesting one. It is an interesting one, defining it down without just choosing the ones that everyone else is going to choose. But it's good, and I think it's a good place to define what do you think makes a good rom-com?
I think for me, because one of the things that I had to differentiate was, I was like, I think there is a difference between a rom-com and a chick flick.
Okay.
In the sense that I think The Devil Wears Prada is more of a chick flick. I think Bridesmaids is a chick flick. And because I thought about Bridesmaids, because
Hmm.
I think that movie is hilarious. To me, that movie is less about the relationship between Kristen Wiig's character and the guy, and more about the relationship between Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph. So I was like, I
Okay.
don't want to call that a rom-com because I think the rom is almost secondary. So for me, a good rom-com, it had to be, I mean, exactly in the title, it had to be a comedy and it had to be a romance almost like in equal measure. It couldn't be, because this was
Mm.
another thing too, there were so many movies where I was like, "That movie has romance and it has comedy." I wouldn't necessarily, and so I'm sorry if I don't want to, I hope I'm not taking any off your list, but my girlfriend was like, "Princess Bride." And I'm like, that has romance, I would say, as a central theme, and it's funny, but it's also a swashbuckling adventure. It's also
Okay.
like, it's so many other things. And so for me, I felt like it had to very much be a romance and it had to very much be a comedy. And I did bend those rules a little bit with my number one, but we will talk about that when we get there.
Yeah, I think that's a valid categorization. Not every single thing is going to fit in perfectly, and there's going to be things that kind of tote the line a little bit. One of mine, I think, meets most of the definitions, but I also would add coming of age to it, so it is a little bit of out there.
Oh,
But yeah, I think I can go along with you, and I think what makes a really good rom-com too is that there is and I can't remember what I was talking about. I think I talked about this sometime recently where I said when there is this other, it was Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
mm,
When there's a good plot that you're following as well, I think that's what helps a lot. Or I don't know if there's just like a cohesive idea too. So I think one of mine follows sort of good plot. Another one follows a central idea or theme that comes up a lot. And I think that those are a lot of elements. I think that filmmaking abilities are really important for good rom-coms. You get so many movies now that have as many people deem the Netflix lighting or the kind of just flat composition of shots,
yes.
or there's not really this vision of really cool things happening. And so I think that's one thing that I am looking for, is there's something more for me to hold on to beyond
Mm.
just the baseline thing that's there. So there's lots of things that I think are overlooked. I think there's lots of, like I said, gems out there that a lot of people unfortunately do kind of write some things off because of the label of rom-com or chick flick, when there is a lot of good actual filmmaking things happening or a lot of really good performance things happening. So hopefully we can highlight that and share some of those examples.
Yeah, and I think with that, I think, like, this is where I, like, confession time. I think that's my problem, is I think that a decade or so ago, I wrote off rom-coms as like, these aren't very good. They're fun, they're light, whatever. But I think there's a lot of rom-coms that people like that I am just like, I like, sure, it's decently funny. Yeah, I've watched it a few times. They're just not ones that yeah, I don't know. Like, I just think, I had watched enough rom-coms in a period of time where I was just like, these are all not very good. I feel like if they're sappy enough, it's an excuse for bad writing, which I think is true in some sense, but I think I just sort of wrote them off. And I wish I hadn't been so busy with school this week, because there were ones I wanted to watch. Like, I really wanted to get to When Harry Met Sally. I wanted to get to Crazy Rich Asians. Like, there were rom-coms that I wanted to get to, because I was like, I feel like these are really quality ones that I just haven't gotten around to, because you don't, for example, you don't really see rom-coms in the Oscars. And we've
Yeah.
talked before, like, the Oscars are not necessarily a good, I don't know, measurement of what is a quality film or not. But yeah, I don't know, like, as I was going through and trying to, I was like, why can I not pick like 3 rom-coms that I love? Like, this is embarrassing. So yeah, like, honestly, like, I'm a little bit like, wow, shame on me for just sort of writing off this genre and focusing on, like, snobby films, when I think there is some really good stuff here. And the other problem is there were ones that I thought of that I simply have not seen even close to recently, and I didn't feel like I could put them on here with how little I remembered them.
Yeah, that's
Because
fair.
there's also I was just gonna say there's another movie coming up in my journalism ethics class, and again, I hope I'm not, like, stealing too many of yours. It's How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and so I haven't been
Mm,
watching it because I'm like, I'm gonna be watching it soon, but that was another one that I probably would have watched this week because I remember liking it. And the only other thing I'll say about rom-coms is I do feel like I also was closeted for so long
sure,
that I wonder around the time, 10, 15, probably closer to 15 years ago when I kind of wrote off rom-coms as like, oh, these are just not very good. I think that was coming from like a kid who was trying to be a movie snob and who didn't realize they were gay. Because I think that these, as much as I would love, more LGBTQ plus representation in rom-coms, I do find myself enjoying like because again, I don't want to make everything about me being gay. Like I love Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but I also really like Pride and Prejudice. And like
sure.
there's a lot of straight rom-coms that I think are really delightful, but I think for one reason or another, and again, I'm just kind of looking back and kind of a shame on me, but for one reason or another, I wrote off this genre and have really never tapped back into it. And this was kind of a wake up call for me that like, hey, there are some really, like you said, there are some gems here that I think I just haven't given the time of day, and that's not fair.
Yeah, and I think in general too, romance will be recognized at the Oscars, and that happens.
Yes,
But the comedy, I think, is what is, a huge blind side of the Academy and something that is missed a lot.
agreed.
And I think I understand at least a little bit why. And I think it's because a comedy can be hard to judge until time has passed, until years later, when you can look back and you can be like, oh, yeah, when Harry Met Sally is great because the jokes are still relevant today. They're not just,
Mm,
cultural touch points of 1989? Things that are, you know, timeless. They're things that are funny because of relationships and because we've all,
yes.
seen different things here or there. It doesn't mean I think comedy does evolve, and I think that there are things that happen in one of mine that I'm like, that's maybe not great. So that's another issue, right? So you have to be careful if you're an Oscars voter and you don't know if this comedy is going to be relevant in the future. So
Mhm.
I understand that, but still, like you said, I think something that people like us that are maybe looking at a lot of more of these art type films can be open to and seeing different types of things. So I did want to just throw out a couple honorable mentions similar to
Okay, I
you
have a
that
couple
like
as well.
I didn't quite catch these, but they maybe could have snuck in there. So that movie I was talking about is with Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Deutsch. It's called What If. Um,
Okay.
we watched that a couple of years ago, really liked it. So there's one that released a few years ago on Hulu called Rye Lane that many people probably haven't heard of, but is really, really, really good. So Rye Lane,
Okay.
RYE, go check that one out. Sorry. So this one I've only seen once and it was a long time ago. And it's similar to you. I really want to rewatch it. And maybe it doesn't, I think it classifies in the rom-com, but maybe it's more the rom. But About Time is one I want to
Yes.
revisit. And then my last honorable mention is 10 Things I Hate About You.
Okay. My honorable mentions, one of them I already mentioned, but it is Bridesmaids.
Okay.
Because again, I do think it is one of those movies that I don't know why, but I find it so funny. It is and it's one of the movies. It is nominated for I think one Oscar. Melissa McCarthy was nominated for her role
That's
in
awesome.
it, and it's a movie that I found when I went to my first semester of college, and I was super super depressed, and that was just a movie that I could laugh till I cried. I thought it was so so funny. And then another one that I also thought of, and I almost picked this one to add on my list, and I didn't, and I'll kind of say why, but it's a Netflix, I think, original. It's called The Half of It.
What's
It
that
is
one about?
super not well known at all. It's literally about this little Asian girl. She's in total nerd, really good writer, lives in this small town. And to like make money for her and her single dad, she writes like other people's like papers.
Okay.
And it ends up kind of becoming this, I don't know if you know the play or the movie Cyrano de Bergerac, but it's a kind of a play on that, where basically this jock approaches her. So it's set in high school. This jock approaches her and he wants her to help him write love letters to this girl that he's sweet on.
Okay.
So the lead, the girl who is writing, she ends up falling for the girl that she's writing letters to as well.
Oh.
And so I watched it because I was like, at the time, I was like, oh, I want to see, look at this cute little gay rom dramedy. I'm so excited.
Sure.
I would say it's much more honestly about the friendship that grows between the jock guy and the lead.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
I think that's really adorable. And I think just in general, the movie is, I think it's sweet. I think it's pretty feel good. I don't think it's terribly romantic, honestly. There's some cute moments, but I think the messaging is a little bit broader than that. And so for
Sure.
me, I was like, I don't feel like the romance is quite enough of center stage, and I also didn't feel like it was quite funny enough.
Okay, that's fair.
But I would say if you haven't seen the half of it on Netflix, it's pretty short, it's quick, it's a nice little indie film. I think it has some really lovely messaging. I think it's a solid pick. I would recommend it.
Sounds really good.
But would you like to kick us off with your number 3?
My number 3, I think I've heard you say before you don't like this, so we're just going to start right off. And it is 2011's Crazy Stupid Love.
That's fun. You have a star rating for my number 3 as well, so I think we're going to kind of feel the same way about each other's number 3.
Okay.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But
so,
you get into it, and I'll give a couple thoughts.
Yep. So obviously starring Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Julianne Moore, Emma Stone, Kevin Bacon, Marissa Tomei. So lots of people, lots of things going on here. The big one for me is this is written by Dan Fogelman. Now, Dan Fogelman is the creator and main writer of the TV show This Is Us, which I love. That was like, it's kind of funny. Me and my 2 best friends in college, we would get together every week to watch This Is Us together. Most people at that age, it's Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, that type of thing. Nope, ours was This Is Us. But I do think it's what makes this movie really great, obviously, is the performances. Those people I named are obviously all stars, and so they're so engaging. What's really, really funny about this is that basically every meme of Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell or GIF is actually from this movie. And even it's funny, Steve Carell, obviously being in The Office and having so many moments, it's crazy how many popular GIFs are actually from this movie of Steve Carell. So that's just fun, kind of watching those scenes happen in the wild. But really, where this movie gets me and probably gets most people is the twist scene. And anyone that hasn't seen it, fast forward a minute or so, because it's totally worth it. But basically every storyline converging into one and like just rapid fire finding out like 6 or 7 different misunderstandings or things happening is so fun. And then to cap it off when Kevin Bacon comes on and then everyone's like, wait, you're this guy? And they all go and beat him up is so funny. It's so good.
Yeah.
We rewatched this one yesterday too, and we were just talking. I was reading, I actually saw on Reddit, like, and a couple hours later, I was like, oh, that was ironic. Someone posted something about it way after I just seen this movie, and they talked about their theatrical experience, and I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine seeing this for the first time in a packed theater and that scene happens? Because this is one, and someone else pointed this out, like, there's some things where you watch and you're like, oh, if I rewatched this, the science would be there. I would understand. And I think for anyone too, if you haven't seen this, but you've seen This Is Us, this is kind of a trademark thing of This Is Us, of like things coming together and you being like, oh my gosh, this is this or this or this. So like, but this is one where like it's not telegraphed at all. It's just there's not really any way you would pick up on it. So it's a really well executed probably one of the best ones I can even think of any movie, any genre, executed perfectly. This is the one I mentioned. There are a few things that I'm like, that's a little problematic, but we'll just.
I think everything with the babysitter and Robbie just leaves a
Right.
bad taste in my mouth.
Right. Yeah, that's the one that's like, it.
I think if we didn't have that subplot, I would be way more on board with this movie.
Yeah, I think there's a better way to work some of that stuff in, because some of it is just really, really, yeah, problematic to say the least. But yeah, so this is one again that we watched once and just immediately fell in love with it. So really enjoy it. I think meets all the criteria of rom-com, meets all the criteria of a lot of different tropes happening, but they're well executed. And like I said, it has that twist factor that works really well.
Yeah, this is one that I have seen quite a few times, and I do like it. I don't dislike it. I think a lot of people rant and rave about it, and I'm like, I think you're spot on. All the performances are really, really solid. I think Gosling and Stone have electric chemistry.
Yeah.
Like, I think that I don't know. I should give this a rewatch because it has been a hot minute, but I think it's a solid pick. It's not one that I am like head over heels in love with, but I know so many people who love it. I think it could have a rewatch. Like I said, there's just the last 20 minutes. I think the reveal where all the storylines converge is great. And I think there's
and then it goes on for a little. I admit, I agree. I think there's a few scenes that are unnecessary in that. I don't think all of it is bad after that, but I think there's a few scenes it's like, agreed. Okay, like we're kind of plodding around here, not really moving. One thing I was going to say, I think what's interesting about this, look at This Is Us, is that This Is Us is like slam you over the head 1,000 times, making you cry over and over and over and over again. And I do think it's interesting that this doesn't really have the same thing in it.
No.
So it really, I don't know if that's, obviously Dan Fogelman is very much into that. So I'm just curious if that was something in the early stages he wanted, or if it was kind of all built around that scene. I don't have really any insider answers into that, but because I will say, it'd be a question I'd be interested in asking him. Yeah, because I mean, you're spot on. That one scene, that is laugh out loud funny. And I think that's the thing, is that whole movie is, it's hitting, even though there's some points where I'm not loving it, it's kind of hitting these beats, and then it really peaks at that scene. Right. And I think it spends a little too much time meandering around after that. Right, yeah. But solid pick. So my number 3, I probably should have mentioned this as an honorable mention too. I almost picked Groundhog Day. Really? Yes, because I think that's actually one of the first movies we did when I did a podcast before. I think it's really freaking funny. Like, I think it's so funny. I think Bill Murray is in top form. I kind of picked it similar to the reasons of Bridesmaids. I don't think the romance is a central feature. Sure. I think this movie is a comedy first and foremost, and there is some romance stuff that sneaks in. Okay. So what I picked instead, this is actually a rom-dramedy, not a straight comedy, but I picked Silver Linings Playbook. Okay. So directed by David O. Russell, written also by David O. Russell, but it's based off of a novel written by Matthew Quick. Stars Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. So brief synopsis, Bradley Cooper plays a gentleman who has recently gotten out of a mental hospital. I'm sorry. I should have jumped in when I could, retracing just a little bit to Groundhog's Day. I'm so sorry. Again, so sorry. No, you're fine. You can go back over this. Have you seen Palm Springs? No. Okay, so I would add that to the tippy top of your watch list. Palm Springs it's a groundhog formula with Andy Samberg. And but it's much more rom-com than, so it may be taking Groundhog Day and truly making it the rom-com you're talking about. So Palm Springs. Okay. That was another one I like I said, I don't always remember it, but that's one I would add to my honorable mentions. Palm Springs is great. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. So yeah, brief synopsis of Silver Linings Playbook. Bradley Cooper plays a gentleman who is just getting out of a mental hospital. He ends up finding out, late in life that he has bipolar, that he is bipolar, he has bipolar disorder. You end up finding out basically he kind of snapped when he found his wife cheating on him. And I won't keep this fairly spoiler free, so I don't feel like that's a big spoiler, but I don't want to reveal too much of what happens and how kind of what he does and what I mean by he snapped. But I think it has a really healthy, honestly, really funny look at mental health. There's that scene where he first meets Jennifer Lawrence and they're each talking about like the different medication they've been on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that scene is genuinely super, super funny. I feel like it does paint that. I mean, there's several times where they talk about it, where they both realize, like, they make jokes about both each other and themselves being, like, quote, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it does it in a way that is, again, like, neither of these are perfect characters, but I do feel like the overall take on just what mental health and everything is honestly incredibly healthy. I think the leads are solid. I mean, they were both nominated for Oscars. Jennifer Lawrence won, which, I mean, she absolutely deserved it. Before Jennifer Lawrence was cast, I guess Anne Hathaway was cast, but couldn't because of conflicts. And so a
Interesting.
bunch of other people were up for the role, were considered. Angelina Jolie was considered, a handful of other people. I think Jennifer Lawrence knocks it out of the park. I think
Yeah, she was born for it.
she's so good. And I think it's really, really funny. Like I said, there's moments. It is a dramedy. Like, I will say there are moments, like, it's not quite the same, like, lighthearted feel as something like 10 Things I Hate About You or Groundhog Day. Like, there's moments that are
Right.
gnarly. But, like, there are scenes that are laugh out loud funny. When he's like, okay, I'm going to read all the classic books that my wife teaches in her high school English class. And he finishes that first book and he just goes, what the? And he throws it out the window. I find that so funny every time because, like, how many of us have read a quote classic book and been like, so this is trash, right? We know this is trash.
Sure.
I just think it's, I don't know. I think it's lighthearted. I think it's funny. I think the end scene gives you that. What I love about rom-coms is there's this, and I think like sports films kind of do this too. There's that sense of like triumph at the end where you want these characters to win. You want them to get together. You want to see this thing do well. And that's kind of what happens at the end is there's some things, they're entered in a competition. There are bets riding on this. And it's that moment where I'm just like, I want this to work. It's gotta work. I want this to happen. I want this to do well. And when it does, like when everything clicks and comes together, it's a very empowering moment. Like, it's very exciting to see everything click. So that's one that I really love. I showed it to my family. It's become a family favorite. Again, I don't know if it's like the best of the best as far as rom-coms. I really struggled with this, but I think it's a solid pick, and I'm pretty comfortable with putting Silver Linings Playbook as my number 3.
Great. Yeah, it's not my favorite, but I like it.
Kind of how I feel about Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a 2020 film on Netflix about a Chinese American student who helps a jock classmate woo a girl whom
Oh
secretly
my
they both
gosh.
desire. It's called The Half of It.
You played that off super well, my friend.
Thank you. Yes. Been watching a lot of movies,
I'm so glad
I've
you picked this.
I've been getting acting down. Yeah, I don't remember when we watched this movie, but we watched it and me and Allie were like, whoa, so that was like the best rom-com we've ever seen in our entire lives. I just love this
It's so
movie.
good.
Yeah. I think it's
so good.
It's very creative with the way they use texting a lot. Visually, there are a lot of interesting things happening. In particular, there's the scene where they're doing some graffiti on this wall.
Mm-hmm.
And just to watch that kind of develop into something really beautiful is really cool. But also, again, the way they're using the words and the text is really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I let you do a lot of the talking on this one because it's great. It's directed by
I'm
Alice.
so happy you picked it.
Yeah, it's directed by Alice Wu, who hasn't done a lot of other things. written by her as well. She hasn't done a lot of other things, but I'm glad that she did this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a ton more to say about it, except I love this movie to pieces. This is a really, really good movie. And I think what I noticed this last watch through was I think it moves a lot like a traditional rom-com and moves you down the path to getting to a trope and then subverting it, and then walking and getting to another
Totally
trope
agree.
and subverting it. And so I think
Yep.
that's what makes it really good. And I do, this was also my one I say I think is rom-com plus coming of age. So kind of goes into what you were saying, where you don't know if it categorizes into it. But I think that's where I still would categorize into it, because it does like walk those beats a lot, but then it does go into a really interesting path.
Yeah. Like I said, we almost overlapped because I was close to putting this on my list, simply because at the very least I was like, I didn't think that you had seen it, and I was like, I want to raise awareness to this movie. So I was literally this close. Again, just what I go back to, like, the reason I didn't is because the scene that sticks with me the most, is that scene right at the end where she's on the train and the jock kid is running after her.
Yeah.
That's the scene that pops into my head whenever I think of this movie. But you're right. I mean, it hits a lot of those beats, and I feel like there are times where you think something will happen. Because this is a small spoiler, but like at one point, the jock starts to, I don't know if he starts to fall for Ellie or if he just thinks that he's falling for her, but he like goes to make a move on her and she's basically like, whoa, 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 no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And also, I'm not attracted to men, but also, what are you doing?
Right.
Sorry, spoiler alert. And that's a very common thing that happens, that like in an alternate universe or an alternate movie, that is what would happen, is that the jock finds out that he has a thing for the girl who's been helping him. And yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it hits a lot of the tropes and then subverts them. And I think, again, good pick. Like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm so
Thank you.
glad
Thank
you
you.
picked it.
That was fun. I was so glad when I heard that, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to play this off. So that was fun.
Well, and that is why I put it as an honorable mention, because I almost put it as my number 3, simply because I was like, I want to raise awareness to this film, because I really, I think it's a lovely little film.
And I wonder too, now that you say that you like it, I think that makes more sense, because as I was scrolling Letterboxd reviews last night, I was like, what are all these people talking about? Like, did they just watch what we watched? But I think because it doesn't go in the way traditional rom-coms generally do, I think it puts a lot of people off to that. And I understand that there's times when I want to go into something expecting exactly what it's going to do and getting that, but I think this movie is a lot deeper, and so that's why it's the way it is. So
Yeah, no, good pick. Good
Thank
pick.
you. What's your number 2?
So I did pick a Disney film.
Okay.
I thought, however, long and hard about which one to do, because while I think, I've mentioned before how I think Beauty and the Beast is lovely. It's incredibly romantic. We've talked about Little Mermaid. I love Little Mermaid. So this isn't necessarily my favorite Disney. It's not even in my top 5, probably not my top 10, maybe. Probably my top 20. But I think it is the one that, to me, there's a lot of Disney movies that I think are romantic, that have funny moments.
Sure.
This is one that I genuinely felt, I was like, this is a comedy. This is a romance and a comedy. And that is Princess and the Frog.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I love that pick.
Yeah, thank you. So directed by Ron Clements and John Musker. For writers, I just put a bunch, because it's a Disney film. So there's like 7 people that helped write this thing. I'm starring Anika Noni Rose and Bruno Campos. I apologize if I pronounced those wrong. But, I mean, for those who haven't seen it, I don't know. First of all, go touch grass. But it's on, the Frog Prince, where it's set in New Orleans, and there's this prince who gets turned into a frog by the villain, the Shadow Man, Dr. Facilier, and he sees the female lead. Why am I drawing a blank? Tiana. He sees Tiana. She's all dressed up for a party. She looks like a princess. He convinces her to kiss him, and this isn't a spoiler. This isn't the trailer. She turns into a frog. instead of him turning into a prince. So the reason I picked this one, because I wrote like in my thoughts, like, why this Disney film? And just as I said, to me, that setup alone is comedic in nature.
Right.
The first, I would say, good half, maybe even 2/3 of the movie is like a comedy of errors.
Right.
It's them in the bayou trying to figure out what to do because they're both frogs. Prince Naveen is incompetent, and
to say the least.
And Tiana is this good, hard-working woman. But I think it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I think it strikes that balance of you kind of have almost this like enemies to lovers trope going on. It's a comedy of errors. Just a couple things. It was the last 2D Disney film, the last one that used traditional cell animation. This movie did not perform as well as Disney wanted, which is why the next two that they did, Tangled and Frozen, were both a 3D animation, and they did take a more modern take with it because they felt like this was a little too almost like classic fairy tale. It didn't bring in the appeal that they wanted it to bring, which I think is a shame.
Yeah, it is.
It was very, so I found out the parts in New Orleans were very heavily influenced by Lady and the Tramp, which I think is a fine Disney film. And then fine as in very fine, not in the way I describe other films where I'm like, it's fine. No, I think Lady and the Tramp is amazing. And then the bayou scenes were influenced in large part by Bambi.
Interesting.
So I thought that was really cool. Really cool as well. But I think it's a lot of fun. Like, I think it's very, very cute. Like I said, it strikes that like, oh, you're so, so happy they got together. But it's also just, it has moments that are laugh out loud funny and I feel like it does hit a lot of those like rom-com tropes, like I don't want to say spoiler alert because it's Princess and the Freaking Frog,
yeah,
but
like enemies to lovers and
even the scene where like Naveen is like, I'm going to confess my love. And then he sees he's ready to, and then he sees how excited she is for her restaurant, and he's like, okay, well, that's more important than me getting what I want, is getting her what she wants.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I just think it's lovely.
That's a great
nominated
pick.
Thank you. Nominated for 3 Oscars. It didn't win any of them because Up came in and swept up the animated Oscar, which it did not deserve. But that's a conversation for another time. But it also, just a couple other fun facts. It is the first time since Beauty and the Beast where the voice actors were also the singing actors.
Okay, cool.
And it was also the first time since Lion King where not 1, but 2 songs were nominated for Best Original Song. But it lost to some random movie that I've never heard of.
What?
I don't know. I'd have to pull it up. It was just I was like, what the heck?
Huh.
And I was like,
That's
that
funny.
movie? I've never even heard of that. So, but yeah, so that was my Disney pick. Like I said, I mulled over. There are other Disney movies and Disney princess movies I actually like more. I mean, I love Beauty and the Beast. I love Little Mermaid. I really, really love Sleeping Beauty. But I felt like this was the one that, like I said, struck that chord of equal amounts romance and comedy.
Awesome.
So, you're number 1.
Yes, you mentioned it as well. And I feel like we have to shout this one out for the namesake of our podcast. And that is When Harry Met Sally. Now, this is a great movie. I mean, just when I talk about, I already mentioned it, but it is just sort of, the jokes are great. It's very funny. It's very interesting to kind of, like, it is funny in a way that it's like, there isn't really a plot. There's just kind of like doing whatever, which again, I love a lot of the time. Not always. When it's done well, when it's shot well. There's that one scene where they're like friends at this point, but they haven't dated at all. Sally ends up having a date, and they're like, I don't know where they are, a museum or something, and it like splits off, and he's wearing the iconic sweater, I think, but it like splits off, and there's this thing in the middle of them, and it's just a great shot, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. Obviously directed by Rob Reiner, may he rest in peace, obviously with recent tragedy as well, so I just think that this is just a classic. It's not one that I watched until, the last 5 to 10 years, or I don't know when we watched it, maybe like 2019, but then it was like, oh, we need to rewatch this every year because we love this. And it's hilarious that this movie is rated R. The only reason
Right.
is because of the, again, namesake of our podcast scene. But it's just so silly. It's like, really, guys, this is why it's rated R. And I'm like, even if you're with like a kid or a teenager and that's happening, that's not like a bad thing to even explain to a kid. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, not like a kid, but like a teen or that type of thing. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is what's going on. But it's not
Mm-hmm.
like graphic, so I don't know. I just think it's hilarious that this of all movies is rated R is kind of like a
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's a few movies like that where, yeah, I'm just like, there is a weird rule in the MPAA rating system where if there's like 2 F words, it's automatically R,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is kind of silly. But no, I really do have a hunch that if I had seen it, it would have made my top 3.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Oh,
I
sorry.
really do feel.
Yeah, and I'm been terrible cutting you off this podcast, but
No,
what I
yeah,
was
you're
talking
good.
about earlier, what I think makes this so good is while it doesn't have a plot that is really engaging, the theme is what keeps this one together. And the theme is
Mm,
can a man and a woman be friends without sleeping with each other? Um,
right.
and I don't know that it's can men and women ever just be friends? That's how it puts it. And I don't think it's really interested in actually answering that question. It's just kind of the premise, and
Mm,
that's it kind of goes through and does that. But it's really engaging. It's a really strong way to set something up. I think too, having sort of the bookmarks of the quote unquote real couples telling their stories about falling in love is really nice. Those are real stories, but they're actors telling the stories. So that's again, I think where rom-com can go wrong is not having a direction. So you need a plot or you need a theme that you want to address and tackle hard. And then you need some technical components coming together. Obviously, Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Carrie Fisher, Bruno Kirby, all delivering lifetime iconic performances that do stand the test of
right.
time and do make for a very enjoyable viewing experience.
Yeah, no, like I said, this is one that has been on the top of my watch list for a while, and this is, yeah, I really, I need to get to this one. So my number 1, I had to pick, an old one because like I like my older black and white movies. And how can I have a top 3 rom-com list without featuring our man Cary Grant?
Mm.
So again, I have to apologize once again for my lack of watching rom-coms because I feel like there are other ones that could have maybe taken this spot. I haven't seen Arsenic and Old Lace yet. I haven't seen An Affair to Remember, and I kind of think An Affair to Remember probably would have taken the spot. I thought about The Philadelphia Story, which stars Katharine Hepburn and Jimmy Stewart, as well as Cary Grant. I also thought about Bringing Up Baby, which is Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn as well. I eventually landed on another film that was directed by Howard Hawks, who also did Bringing Up Baby, and that is His Girl Friday.
Okay.
And the reason I need to apologize for this one a little bit is I really do feel like this one is more of a comedy and less of a romance,
That's okay.
but it's really, really good. And it is on my mind because I got it this past Christmas and I watched it on Christmas Day. So it was very fresh in my mind when I was looking through my movies, trying to be like,
Awesome.
all right, top 3 rom-coms, let's go. It's directed by Howard Hawks, written by Charles Lederer. He did the screenplay, but it's originally based on a play called The Front Page, written by Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur. Stars Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant. The premise is, so The Front Page is basically about a news editor and like the editor's best man, best reporter guy, and the reporter guy decides he's done with the business. So Howard Hawks kind of wanted to do this for a while, and he was reading part of it at a party once. He read for Cary Grant's character, and there was a woman at the party who read the other part, and that's when it clicked. He was like, I want to gender bend the script. What if instead of 2 guys, it was a man and a woman? Let's complicate it further. What if they used to be married? So that's the premise,
That's
is
awesome.
this character Hildy, she is a sharp reporter. She's really good at what she does. She used to be married to Cary Grant, and now she's gonna get married to someone else. And so Cary Grant, less because he's in love with her and more because he's like, "This is my best reporter," he starts to meddle. And so it's just this series of events, and you have kind of this character, Hildy, who's, yeah, just a crack reporter in this world. Like, I honestly think it's a very feminist film because she is in this world of men who are very, like, loud and brash, and she is the best of them.
Yeah.
That being said, like, none of the characters are likable simply because it's funny and there's so much going on. They're kind of all terrible people.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm like, I have a little bit of a hard time because at the end, you're not really wanting Cary Grant. You kind of want her and Cary Grant together to get together again. But the focus is less on the romance and more of just like, this is a screwball comedy. It's also just, it's fast. Like, it's fun, but it's watching it. So I read something where it was like, there's, you know, I don't know how true this is. I read this, but it's been said that the average words per minute in a film is 90
Okay.
words per minute. This one is 240.
Oh my gosh.
So like 2.5 times, 2 2/3 times.
That's awesome.
And you can feel it. Like, Sarah and I were watching it. We were like, oh, this is good for the ADHD because holy crap. Because this was also one of the first times previously films had been done because this was sort of really early on in sound, and they still wanted the sound to sound good. And so there was never any, like, people were never really talking over each other. There was not a lot of overlap. It was someone would say their line, and the next person would say their line. It would go back to the first person's line again. This one, it is fast. They are talking over each other. They're talking at the same time. There's so much going on. They're talking very quickly. This person's talking, they get cut off because another person comes in, like, interrupts, or someone comes in from the next room and starts talking. Like, it's a lot. It is a just whirlwind. It is a tornado of dialogue that I think is just fun. And so that's why I put it on, is I had to have a Cary Grant, and like there are other ones that I think are more romantic, but this one again was just on my mind, and I think it's a blast. So if you haven't seen it, I think it's a movie that everyone would like. Like, I don't think it's not one of those movies that I'm like, you have to like old movies to like it. No, it's fast, it's hilarious. And I think anyone could pick this up and have a really great time.
Awesome. I'll have to add it. That's a huge blind spot for me of movies from a long time ago.
Bringing Up Baby is fun too. Bringing Up Baby is just it's more of a screwball, I would say, and it's a lot more of Katharine Hepburn just sort of steamrolling Cary Grant because he plays like this mild-mannered, like, paleontologist scientist man who is just in over his head. Like, that's basically what the movie is it's just him being like, oh my gosh, I don't know what is going on and I'm so confused. And it's just Katharine Hepburn just steamrolling him. And this movie is more of just like, they are equally matched and they are head to head having a battle of wits and words, and it's amazing.
Awesome.
So those are our top 3 rom-coms. Like I said, I am committed to watching more of these, so I will have more coming up the pipeline in my letterbox hopefully over the next few months.
Yeah, check out Palm Springs.
I will. I'm intrigued by that one for sure. But Adam, what are we watching?
Well, I am 41 out of 50 nominated movies for this year's Oscars. So I have 9 more movies that I have to watch before March 15th. And
Excellent.
So everyone should at least watch most, if not all, of the Best Pictures nominees. There's 10 of them. Additionally, we are still talking about Ghibli. We love what they're doing over there in Japan. So we're going to, in particular, be talking about some of their war themes coming up, because that is a central theme in a lot of those. But yes, as always, we appreciate anyone that does listen and engages with us on our social media, primarily Instagram, but we may be doing other things in the future. You can check us out anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, whatever other places there are to listen to podcasts, but that are, mainstream, whatever, nothing obscure. But that is it for this episode. Again, we appreciate everyone that listens, and until next time.
Catch you later.